as I said, this meeting is about radon gas. So our expert speaker is Connie Choy. She's the air quality coordinator and the smoke-free homes and asthma coordinator for the Ontario Lung Association. Connie's some education in environmental studies from York University. Her thesis was, in fact, on indoor air quality in the home and its effects on health. So she's certainly well qualified to talk about radon gas. So I think rather than using up her time, I'll let her speak. Connie's going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then we have another 30 minutes where you can ask questions, and Connie will do her best to answer those questions. So take it away, Connie.
Great. Thanks so much, Jim. Can you hear me okay? I'm actually using a speakerphone on my phone, so I'm hoping it's okay with the volume.
I can hear fine. Anybody got any complaints?
Illinois can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so thanks again, Jim, for having me speak tonight for your group. It's actually great to reach out to other individuals and other organizations who are interested in learning about radon. At the Lung Association, we've been trying to educate about this issue because it's something that people may have heard the word, or may have heard the name before, but they may not know too much about it. So we're just trying to get the word out and just do some general education and hopefully raise some awareness across Canada and the U.S. So it's great to have someone from the U.S. join us as well, because I know there's actually been a lot of work done in the U.S. on radon. So it'll be interesting to hear different perspectives on your experiences with hearing about radon in the news or talking to friends and family. So hopefully this session kind of introduces the issue for many of you, and feel free to ask any questions you may have after the session. So I'll just go through in terms of what I'll be covering in the call. So basically I'll just be introducing, what is radon, so what is the radon issue, and also the health effects from radon exposure to human beings. So there is a health impact with exposure to radon, and that's why at the Lung Association we are involved in educating about this issue, because it does affect our lungs, the lungs that we use to breathe. I'll also be talking about how to test for radon, so what the process is to find out how much radon is inside your home or any other building. I'll also be talking about we're talking just about the Canadian radon guideline, just to see what the safe levels of radon are established in Canada by Health Canada. So I'll be just reviewing that really quickly, and then talking about remediation, so how to fix homes with high levels of radon found inside any home or building in terms of the process and everything. So that's pretty much what I'll be covering in this call, and feel free to ask any questions at the end. So I'll just start with what is radon. So basically radon, it's a naturally occurring radioactive gas. It is found everywhere in the ground in the world. So, no matter what country you're in, there is radon naturally occurring, and it will be found everywhere. So when you're outside, outside generally, you are breathing in very low levels of radon because it is naturally occurring from the ground. Radon can get into any building, such as a home, an office, a school, undetected. And this is because radon is invisible. You can't see it, you can't smell it, or you can't taste it. So these are the main, that's really why it's important to find out, because you don't really know, you can't see it, you can't really know if it's there or not until you find out through a test. So we encourage people to test for that. I'll be talking about that a bit more later. Radon itself, it is produced from the breakdown of uranium in soil, rock, and water. So it's, as I mentioned before, it's found everywhere in the world, in the ground. You can't really get rid of it. It's there. It's it could become a health issue if it can get into any building and build up to high levels over time. So the whole point is to learn more about the issue and take action as much as possible. So yeah, radon, you can't see it, smell it, or taste it. In terms of exposure to radon, basically what happens is radon, it can seep into any building through any openings in contact with the ground. So things like cracks in the foundation floors, the walls, through any openings such as pipes or some pumps that are actually drilled into the ground, any openings that are actually in touch with the ground, that's actually how radon can get into the home. And air pressure differences basically draw radon indoors, similar to a vacuum. So if you think of a home or a building similar to a vacuum cleaner, kind of sucking up the radon from underneath the ground, that's really how much radon can get into the home, is basically over time, the different air pressure systems inside the home, negative, positive pressures with, open windows, open doors, closed windows, and everything like that. It actually can draw radon from underneath the ground, similar to a vacuum cleaner, and actually suck it into the home. So that's pretty much how radon can build up over time. And if it becomes a health risk, this is because it's actually building up to high levels over time and can cause serious health issues. So, as I mentioned before, radon can be found in soil. It can even be found in groundwater as well. So some people may have a well system built into their property. Radon can seep into the water in the ground, and actually from the groundwater and go into the groundwater that people drink. So there is a separate testing for radon in water, but the more serious health risk is actually breathing it in through your lungs over time, because the radon levels are actually found in water. It's really little, and it's not really too much to be concerned about. So that's generally in terms of where the radon can come from. In terms of radiation, so radon is a source of radiation. It does cause about 31%, so about a third of all the ionizing radiation that the average resident in the U.S. or Canada is exposed to on a yearly basis. So if you think about, the radiation that we're exposed to, whether it's through X-rays or through, phone lines or all those power lines and stuff like that, radon is about a third of the radiation that we are exposed to on an annual basis. And in X-ray diagnosis, so medical X-rays, it's about 39% of the radiation exposure. So radon is a pretty significant source of radiation that we are exposed to, and the issue is, people don't really know about it, so we're just hoping to educate as much as possible, just so people are aware of this issue. In terms of radon and how it can get into your lungs, so that is the primary exposure. Basically, when you're breathing it in or inhaling radon gas, it basically damages lung tissue and cells inside your lungs. And as lung tissue becomes damaged, it is linked to lung cancer developing over time. So the main health risk is lung cancer. There have been numerous studies showing the link between exposure to radon and lung cancer developing over time. So that's the main thing to be worried about is, lung cancer developing. And it is has classified as a carcinogen to humans. Radon is a carcinogen to humans, so this is why it's important to learn about the issue and take action. In terms of radon exposure and the health effects, so as I mentioned just now, basically long-term exposure to radon gas increases the risk of lung cancer developing over time. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer after smoking. So radon causes, in Canada, it causes about 16% of lung cancer deaths each year, which translates to about 3,200 Canadians on an annual basis dying from radon exposure because of lung cancer or radon-caused lung cancer. So it is a pretty significant thing when you think about it. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer after smoking. The risk of developing lung cancer does depend on a number of factors. So it depends on the radon concentration, so how much radon you're exposed to, the duration of exposure, so how long you're exposed to radon over time, as well as a person's smoking status, exposure to secondhand smoke. So this can also lead to different risks in terms of how you can develop lung cancer. People who smoke have an even greater risk of lung cancer because of the combined effects of breathing in radon and smoking as well as cigarettes. So basically that's why people that are smokers are generally at much higher risk from lung cancer developing. Living in a home with high levels of radon for many years does put people at risk for lung cancer. Just looking at comparables, so background levels of radon, the background levels are generally what you're exposed to when you're outside. You can't really get away from it. It's just there. There's a 1% chance for a non-smoker to develop lung cancer breathing in that radon, but for a smoker, that risk raises to 12%. So it does significantly get higher as, people become a smoker. So really high radon levels, for a lifetime risk for a non-smoker, there's about a 5% chance of developing lung cancer, but for a smoker, that increases to 30%. So it's a pretty significant increase when you think about it for people who are smokers. So it's just another reason for people who smoke to quit, because it does significantly increase the risk of lung cancer developing, which is a serious health risk, as you all know. Just talking about the radon exposure risk comparison to other ways of other types of deaths. So the radon risk for a non-smoker exposed to high levels of radon does equal the risk of all accidental deaths combined. So accidental deaths include drownings, fires, vehicle accidents. So the radon risk for a non-smoker exposed to high levels of radon does equal all this together. So it is a pretty significant number as well when you think about all, other ways that people can pass away from. So next I'll just be talking about so Health Canada did a cross-Canada survey of about 14,000 homes across Canada. They measured radon levels in all these homes in every province in Canada. And based on this study, they came out with the fact that about 7% of Canadian homes have high levels of radon in Canada. So it's important to think about that, because earlier estimates, there was about 5% of Canadian homes with high levels of radon, but that level is now closer to 7%. It may not seem that much, but 7% of all Canadian homes, it's still, tens of thousands of homes overall. So there's still quite a significant number of homes that are at risk for high levels of radon. The survey is found on the Health Canada website, and they actually break it down by health region across all the 10 provinces. And I just took Ontario as an example, as a province. So in Ontario, about 1/3 of the health regions in the province had more than 10% of homes tested back with high levels of radon. So that's pretty, 1 in 10 homes in Ontario, based on all the 1 in 3 health regions, came back with high levels of radon. So radon can be found anywhere. It is a significant health issue, and it can be it doesn't really matter where the person is. It can be found anywhere. So in terms of how you find out how much radon's in your home, the only way to find out is to do a radon test. So basically, you actually can get a radon test kit from a retail store, online retailers, other places. Health Canada does recommend a long-term radon test kit to be used instead of a short-term test, because a long-term test allows a minimum of 3-month testing period. So the 3-month testing period becomes a more accurate radon reading on a general, the home, in terms of how much radon really is found inside the home. So Health Canada does recommend a long-term radon test kit. And the best times of the year to test for radon is during the fall, winter, and early spring months. So the colder months of the year are the best times to test for radon, because this is generally when the windows and doors are closed in each home and the heating system is operating, which will provide a more accurate reading of the indoor radon concentrations inside a typical home. So we recommend people do the testing in the wintertime or in the colder months of the year. If they do start a test in the summer months or in the warmer months, generally we recommend people, keep the test ongoing until at least a couple months into the colder months of the year to ensure a more accurate reading overall. Testing is really simple, and it doesn't really cost too much. Anyone can test themselves. All you have to do is just get a test from a retail store or an online retailer, and just set it up in your home for a couple months, and just leave it there, and then mail it back for the analysis. The lab will actually send you the results directly, so no one else will find out the results of how much radon's in your home except for the labs, since they're the ones that measure it. over time. And you can also get a certified radon professional to do the test for you if you're interested in having, dealing with a certified professional. They can actually come into your home and do the radon test as well. But as I mentioned, it's really simple to do the test yourself. Radon tests can be purchased, as I mentioned, in some home improvement stores. So in Canada, home hardware stores and Home Depot. Generally, most of these stores will have radon test kits available. There's some online retail providers, such as the Radiation Safety Institute of Canada, who does have their own lab. They actually do these tests themselves in their own lab and will provide you Canadian results as well. So there are different types of radon test kits available. There's either the alpha track detector or the e-perm electric ion chamber device as well that's available. So there's different types of devices, but all of them are all going to be accurate, and they will be useful for you to find out how much radon is really inside your home. So the process is really simple. I've actually bought a test before just to see what it looks like. All you have to do is you take the test out of a plastic bag, which will come inside the kit. You place it in an area of your home where you spend at least 4 hours a day or more. So generally we recommend, people spend time in the bedroom, a home office, a living room. Generally those are the best places to put a test kit because people are spending time there. So even though you generally would test the lowest level of your home, such as the basement, if you don't really spend that much time in your basement, we don't really recommend people testing there because people aren't exposed to the air inside that basement area. So we do recommend people test the next level, which is generally the ground level of a home. So it's just some things to think about as you're looking at doing a radon test, just finding out the best way and the best place to put this radon kit for at least a 3-month period where it won't be disturbed and you can actually remember to go back and send it back to the lab to get the results back directly to you. So it's a really simple process. You don't have to do anything. You just place it in the location for a couple months and then send it back. So really simple. Anyone can do the test themselves. And we do recommend everyone test their home no matter where they're found. In Canada, so the Canadian radon guideline for safe radon levels is at 200 becquerels per cubic meter. So that's the unit of measurement, so 200 becquerels per cubic meter. Basically, what this means is that buildings that are found above the 200 level should be fixed in order to lower the radon guidelines as much as possible. And it's important to know that high radon levels can be fixed. So if you do find out that you do have high levels of radon in your home, it's not the end of the world. There's definitely something that can be done to fix it. It's not difficult to do the fix as well. So we want to encourage people to test and find them out for themselves. And then if you do have high levels, to take action. Generally in Canada, if the radon level is between 200 and 600, Health Canada does recommend fixing the home within 2 years. And radon levels above 600, generally Health Canada does recommend the home be fixed within 1 year. So generally, those are some of the standards that are developed by Health Canada in terms of radon testing and guidelines. In terms of remediation, so how to fix for high levels of radon. So the most effective and common radon reduction strategy is actually called active soil depressurization. So active soil depressurization is basically a system that's put into a home by a certified radon professional. It does require a hole to be drilled into the basement floor with a pipe installed, and inside the pipe contains a fan. And with the fan, basically would gently draw out the radon from underneath the home and push it outside, so it actually doesn't get a chance to build up inside the home for a long period of time. So generally, the active soil depressurization system has been found to reduce radon levels by over 90% in the typical home. So it's a really effective system that can be put in. It does require a certified professional to do this work for you. The cost does range from, generally it's similar to a regular home repair job, I guess. So it does range from $500 to $2,000, depending on the size of your home and how the system has to be put in. So, but it is the most effective strategy to lower radon levels very significantly. And having the system in place inside the home can actually be a selling feature if people are looking at selling the home in the future, preventing radon issues from happening in the first place for years to come. So it's actually a good idea to have a system in place if there is an existing radon problem. There are other methods that are not as effective as the active soil depressurization system. to reduce radon levels. So things like increasing ventilation inside the home, such as using a heat recovery ventilator or an air exchanger, can actually dilute the radon level inside of a building. So increasing the ventilation overall, bringing in fresh air, it does dilute some radon, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. There's also, some people have looked into sealing cracks and openings in the foundation floors and walls, around pipes and drains, things like that, just sealing any openings that are in contact with the ground. Again, because radon is a gas, and gas can get into any openings, even if you seal it, there could be some openings that you really cannot see. So sealing really is not as really effective method to reduce the radon levels over time. So the most effective way is just to have the system put in by a certified professional to ensure that the radon levels do stay low over time. In terms of in Canada, so Health Canada recently developed a radon reduction document for Canadian homeowners, which is available on the Health Canada website. Just look up a Health Canada radon reduction guide, and it is available for download for anyone. Just so you know what the process is to reduce radon levels if you do have them inside your home. Basically, while the health risk from radon exposure below 200 is small, there is no safe level of, there's no radon level that is considered risk-free. So that's something that has been considered by Health Canada. Generally, health risk is low, as I mentioned, but there is still a small, risk that there could be some health issues overall. And it is a choice of each homeowner to decide how much radon they're willing to accept inside a home. So whether it's 50 becquerels per cubic meter, 100 or 200, the Canadian guideline is 200. The U.S. equivalent is about 150. So the U.S. levels are a bit stricter than the Canadian levels, but just in terms of what the current levels are, it's 200, and that is considered safe from Health Canada. But it really is up to every homeowner to decide how much they're willing to accept in terms of radon levels inside their home. As I mentioned before, there's certified radon professionals that can be used to determine basically the best way to reduce or to fix a radon problem if one is found inside a home. So having a certified professional is really important to have. Basically, Health Canada, Health Canada does recognize the Canadian National Radon Proficiency Program for certified radon professionals. So we do recommend people use one of these certified professionals that have gone to specialized training to, look into radon mitigation work for Canadian homes. There is a list available on their website. If you look up so you can also actually call the Canadian National Radon Proficiency Program at 1-800-269-4174. And also their acronym is CNRPP, so you can also look them up as well if you're interested in looking at a list of certified professionals that are found across Canada, just in terms of, individuals who are interested and able to do this work. In terms of, so that's, generally the overall subject that I'll be talking about, as mentioned before. That's pretty much my overall presentation. Just to summarize overall, radon can be found in any home, and it can accumulate to high levels of high radon levels over time, which can lead to an increase in lung cancer risk. Smokers have an even greater risk of lung cancer because of the combined exposure to radon and smoking. So it's important for people who are smokers to have their homes tested, not only for their own benefit, but also for their family, because people who are exposed to secondhand smoke and also high levels of radon can be also at an increased risk of lung cancer developing. So the main message and main goal overall is to quit smoking and test the home for radon as much as possible. It's really important to do those things just to find out, how much radon can be affecting your health overall and your family's health. And in terms of if you have any other questions, we do have a few websites that I can definitely recommend people can visit to read more detailed information about radon, about testing, how to find out, where to get a radon test kit from. You can visit www.takeactiononradon.com. So that's all one word. So www.takeactiononradon.ca. So that's a national website that does have a lot of information about radon, as well as just the overall subject. And you're also able to subscribe to some information if you're interested in getting more information about radon. If you're interested in just generally knowing more about the air quality inside your home, the Lung Association does have a national website called yourhealthyhome.ca. So all one word again, just yourhealthyhome.ca. Generally, it does cover, radon issues as well as other air quality issues in a typical home. So it does provide a room-by-room tour of typical indoor quality issues that you may find inside a typical bathroom, kitchen, basement, living room. So many different rooms in a typical home in Canada. I mean, it's the same thing at the U.S. Many of these homes are pretty similar overall. So it's yourhealthyhome.ca. It does have a lot of great information, and you're welcome to visit those two websites just to find out more information about radon and other air quality issues. So that's pretty much it for me. So if anyone has any questions, just feel free to ask them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Connie. I just want to remind everybody that we are recording this, so don't use your name if you don't want to. That's fine. And we'll turn it over to questions.
Connie,
Yes.
this is Illinois. I brought up our website for our county and so on, and our average is 7.5 PCI/L. What does that mean?
So I know I'm just trying to think. So the U.S. does use PCI/liter, I think. It's picocurs per liter, I believe.
Yes.
So 7.5, that is above what we recommend in terms of in Canada. So I know 200 in Canada means 4 in the U.S.
Okay.
So the safe level in Canada is 4, I guess, when you translate it to picocurs. So 7.5 is it's quite a bit higher than I think what we would recommend. And at that point, you would recommend people do testing as much as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, Connie, it's Jim. I've got a question. So I'm just trying to get this straight. So radon, the risk of radon, of course, is that you breathe in the radon gas, and therefore you have radiation in your lungs, and that increases your risk of lung cancer. Are there any other, does it affect in any other way the lungs in any kind of, I know it's the wrong word, but kind of mechanical way? I mean, does it, is it going to make it more difficult for people who already have some sort of lung disease to breathe, or is it mainly this increased radiation which increases the risk of lung cancer?
Yeah, that's a good question. In terms of looking at the different studies that have been done over the past couple of decades, the one thing that keeps coming back in terms of health risk is radiation from lung cancer, because radon is a radiation particle, so it's a form of uranium that actually breaks down and releases the radon gas into the air. So there's, in terms of health risk, the main health risk is lung cancer. In terms of looking at people that are more at risk, so people with lung disease, generally they may be a bit more at risk because of their generally their weaker lungs or weaker condition overall, which can maybe cause maybe have increased risk of having other things such as increased radiation affecting them a bit more than the average person. So that's what I would think, yeah. But the main risk is related to lung cancer because of the radiation. There haven't really been any studies showing increased risk from other lung diseases, but there's so many factors out there that could cause the lung diseases. There's other environmental pollutants in the air that we breathe. There's triggers such as pets and allergens and things like that. So, but for radon, the main risk is just lung cancer.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, all right. Well, I've got one other question, I guess, and that is that I remember a number of years ago reading that this problem with radon gas in people's homes was particularly severe in certain geographic areas. I guess probably because there were deposits of uranium, somewhere in the neighborhood. Are there some areas of the country or some geographical areas where you sort of regularly find higher levels, say, of radon gas in homes than you might in say other parts of the country?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, looking at the Health Canada Cross Canada survey that they did in 2012, they did generally recommend, or they did actually find out there are high levels of radon found in certain areas of the country, but radon has been found in every province, and in every region as well. But some regions generally do have a slightly higher risk, just based on mapping and results of testing. But generally in Canada, I think it's Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick. For some reason, those three provinces had a greater number of homes that tested high for radon compared to the rest of Canada. But that doesn't mean that there's no high levels of radon in other provinces.
Right. Yeah.
But so I just took Ontario as an example. So in Ontario, you can actually further break it down into the different specific regions. So in the Greater Toronto area, there's not that many homes. I think there's about 4% of homes that tested high for radon. We're down in Chatham, Kent County, down in the southwest. They tested, I think it was about 18 or 19% of homes that had high levels of radon. And then, areas such as Ottawa or, Kingston, they generally had higher levels of radon as well within Ontario, in the eastern areas. So, closer to, I guess 17, 18% of homes had high levels of radon. So, it does really vary in every area, but, radon is found everywhere. But it has been found that, certain pockets may be a little bit higher risk than other pockets. So, those areas, those health units, those government levels, it could be actually a call for them to actually take more action if they're at a higher risk area, showing that there needs to be more, testing done, more awareness done to get more residents in those higher risk areas to test. But we're overall just trying to tell everyone, no matter where you live, there could be radon levels found everywhere. Just give an example, there could be high levels of radon found in your neighbor's house, but then the two houses between this on either side of your neighbor could have really low levels of radon. So it's really random. It really could appear in any home, depending on, there's so many different factors really, in terms of ventilation, how well the home is sealed up, what's underneath the ground, what the home is actually built over in terms of all those different factors. But, one could, as I said, one home could have really high levels, but the rest could have really low levels all around that home. So it's really random. So we just tell everyone, test just because it's good to know whether or not you have a problem. And if you do have a high level of radon in your home, it can be fixed really easily.
Okay, and so would a home without a basement perhaps be a less risk than one with a basement?
Yeah, it's interesting because you would think that but then generally every home has to sit on something. So just because there's no basement, there's still a ground floor that's touching the ground. So technically, the ground floor would be the basement, I guess. And in that case, the ground floor would be a greater risk.
We got something from the fish place or something. How about that?
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, well, thank you very much for everybody for attending, and especially Connie for that interesting presentation. I think, we hear this term sort of radon gas every once in a while, and I don't think, certainly speaking for myself at least, I don't think I really understood what it was all about, and certainly I do now. So, and I guess so does everybody else on the call. So, once again, thanks everybody for taking part, and enlighten us on radon gas. As I said, this presentation's been recorded, and we'll make it available on our website within the next couple of days. But I guess people on the call won't be interested in that. It's people who weren't on the call that will be interested in that. But anyway, once again, thanks everybody, and have a great evening, and we'll talk again. Don't forget, too, that I mentioned we're hoping to do this again in June with another speaker, but we've still got some details to work out. So watch your emails from us, and have a great evening and a great weekend. Take care, everybody.
Thanks very much, Jim. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.